Okay, hello everyone. It's been a hot minute since the last video. I promise I won't keep you waiting like that again until the next time that I do. But now we're back in the Lego room. You can't really see it. I've tried to keep it out of frame as best as I could, but I'm in the middle of a sorting nightmare post-convention that I went to. Me and a friend built a wonderful collab that I'm going to be doing a video on very soon, but the Lego room is an absolute disaster, and I am slowly working to clean it up again. Anyways, today let's talk about Star Wars again. So today we're going to talk about the Dwarf Spider Droid. Lego has produced 7 of these over the course of the years, beginning in 2005. In the last video we did about minifigure scale buildable droid figures, we talked about scale accuracy a lot. We're not going to be focusing as much on scale today. Instead, we're going to be looking at how to interpret a design into Lego. I'm going to get my coffee out of the way. The Dwarf Spider Droid that we see on screen in the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith is a lot different looking than any of the Dwarf Spider Droids we see in front of us. This is the same for a lot of Lego representations, especially Lego set representations, of designs that we see on screen. Building anything out of Lego can be a challenge, and accurately representing them is an even bigger challenge, especially when you're designing something that kids are going to play with. What we're really talking about is efficiency of design and making sure that your model is an efficient representation of the on-screen model rather than a recreation. On screen, the Dwarf Spider Droid is a circle. There is an orb in the middle of the Dwarf Spider Droid with 2 red eyes on it, from which 4 spindly legs protrude. Looking at these models that the Lego company has produced, we're going to look and see where that design really shines through and where it doesn't. In my opinion, we can do a lot better, and by the end of this, we will. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. The first Lego Dwarf Spider Droid was made in 2005 in set number 7528, Wookiee Attack. I like a lot that was done here. Lego got a lot right, and they also got a lot wrong. But you know what? As a first try, I can't knock them too much. Obviously, the whole top part here can spin around, which is a fun play feature that I wish could have been incorporated in some of the later models. What I like about it the most is this dome piece on top. Beyond the fact that sand blue is just a great color choice for these spider droids, especially this one is based off of the 2006 Revenge of the Sith model, and in the Kashyyyk scenes, it's kind of a bluish tone to these gray droids. One thing to note on this model, I didn't have the dark blue hinges for the legs, so I subbed them out for sand blue. I also didn't have the dark bluish gray dome connector piece and antenna, but you know, we did a couple color swaps. It's gonna be okay. What I don't like about this is the representation of the orb that we see in the middle of the Dwarf Spider Droid we see on screen. Obviously there's a lot sticking out in front and behind this model, and the legs are a lot chunkier and just kind of one angle downward and then out. The feet are a little bit too wide. You get where they're coming from, but it just doesn't work. Lego did try their best with the big antenna though. Obviously there are no connection points on top of the dome, so they attach the antenna at the back, and this is representative of the antenna sticking out of the middle. The antenna comes out at a decent height, it waves around on top of the dome, but it isn't actually connected there. So when you see it on an angle, it looks like it's coming out from the middle of the dome, even though it isn't. That is good representation in terms of a build, though not necessarily recreation. Overall, this was a great first try from Lego, but there's some work to be done. And I don't necessarily think they went the correct way when walking away from this dome piece. The next Dwarf Spider Droid we see is from 2008 in set number 7670, Hailfire Droid and Dwarf Spider Droid. This is where Lego really decided on how they were going to be designing their Dwarf Spider Droids going forward. They kept the same telephone piece for the eyes as we saw in the previous model, but they went to this kind of spindly legged version, which works a lot better with the spindly legs we see on screen. The Exoforce robot arms work great in this design. I love how this piece can connect at an angle going down, swoop outward, hit a connection point, and then hit that same curve before going into the feet. What this model misses is the feet. You can see the little shoes that the Dwarf Spider Droid is wearing in every on-screen representation, and this just doesn't have them. Fair enough, I guess. This still works. The cannon, they used a Technic pin in the middle and that classic like red dot at the end to kind of represent a firing laser. I like this. I think it's cute. I think this is very old school Lego Star Wars feel. Obviously, they were able to affix an antenna to the top of the dome. This is the lever piece that they use for their antenna. It works well. It's a little short, but you know what? At the time, this is what we had. I like the choice to use brown, especially in this Geonosis theme build. It works well with the Hailfire droid that it was next to. So let's look at the orb in the middle of this guy. Obviously that orb is central on the design, but it's held atop the legs. That orb is not the center of the Dwarf Spider Droid. There is an orb sitting on top of the rest of the Spider Droid. Does this work representationally? Absolutely, and I think that's why LEGO stuck to this general design moving forward, but they strayed away from that larger dome element that I liked so much in the 2005 version, and they never really went back. Next, in 2013, in set 75016, Homing Spider Droid, we got this little fella. A lot like the previous version from 2013, though it used these modified plates with clips instead of the Exoforce arms. This is pretty much the end design for the Dwarf Spider Droid. Same color scheme, same general setup, same clip arms that LEGO mainly uses. This was 2013, so we're still using that little lever antenna on top. The telephone eyes are a constant moving forward. The cannon changes. This one again went with a Technic axle that we saw in the previous iteration. We've lost the red stud at the end. This is fine. Overall, accurate-ish representation, but again, we've got that orb sitting on top. It's not the central hub for everything. Sad to see. Moving forward in 2016, in set 75142, another Homing Spider Droid set. This time, it was Kashyyyk themed. I think the last one was Geonosis themed. We get another Dwarf Spider Droid. It looks pretty similar to our previous version. We've changed out the Technic axle cannon in the front to a slightly posable stud shooter. I like this for playability. This works really well, especially in these kind of like mid-range sets. These are sold a lot more to kids than just collectors. I like the longer antenna with the rapier from the collectible minifigure series. Again, very similar design language. The modified plates with clips going into droid torsos, going into flat little feet for the boots. This is good. Again, orb on top, not in the middle. What are we doing here? In 2018, I don't know what happened. This is another foil pack that seems to be the outlier for every one of these droid breakdowns. But here is the Dwarf Spider Droid from foil pack 911835. This is released in like a newspaper gift with purchase kind of thing in Europe and maybe in the States, I don't know. This feels like someone built a Dwarf Spider Droid from memory, and they just had no idea what previous Dwarf Spider Droids LEGO has done. There's a lot that I like about this. When we talk about Orb, like, Orb is in the middle of this guy. That's the perfect, they got the sphere in the middle, they got the legs coming out of it. Great. This is kind of more egg-shaped than orb-shaped, if we really want to be a stickler. It's a little too tall, but I like that they tried something different. The legs don't go anywhere near in the correct direction, but at least they're more spindly than the previous versions. So props to them for that. I like the choice to put the eyes in front of the dome as well. I think that representationally, this works a lot better than the telephone in front of the orb hanging out over top of the gun. It's weird, man. It's like, it is a weird build, but it kind of works in some ways. It doesn't work in a lot of other ways. There's no shoes on it. The legs are spindly, yes, but the middle is an egg shape. Like I said, this feels like someone designed this from memory, which, like, props to what they got, but like, they obviously missed quite a bit. In 2019, in set number 75261, Clone Scout Walker 20th Anniversary Edition, we got the exact same Spider Droid as we did in 2016, but with a gray dome instead. There's nothing more to say here. It's the same thing. If we want to be a real stickler, we can say they changed the level of where the modified 1x2s with clips go. Like, it's the same thing. It is the same thing. We've got orb on top again. We've got stud shooter in front. We got the telephone eyes. That's what it is. They feel like this is where we're at. And that's kind of where we stayed. In 2022, set number 75337, ATTE Walker, we got our most recent Spider Droid. It's very similar, slight variations, pearl dark gray instead of black at the base, kind of getting more into that grayish color scheme. I didn't really mention the gray color scheme until now, but I think it works. The light to dark gray allows the Dwarf Spider Droid to be at home on Kashyyyk or on Geonosis or on Seleucami or Felucia or any of these planets that you'd want to slap one of these guys down on for your builds. Regardless, this guy has the same problems that I've mentioned before. The eyes, the cannons, and the legs don't come from the orb in the middle. It comes out from underneath it. So, you know what? I've been saying the same thing for at least 4 of these guys. Let's build our own. So what are we going to do to make sure that we have the proper design language and the proper representational design in our build that the LEGO company seems to keep missing? Things that I want to make sure to hit. 1, we have to have a centralized orb that the legs are coming out of and the cannons are coming out of, and that the eyes are on. I don't like the telephone eyes that 6 out of these 7 have. The one that doesn't have the telephone eyes still could use a little bit of work, but it's getting a little closer. The antenna is another big thing. I want to make sure that we're going back with the dome on both of these guys. That dome might be a little bit too big. I've seen a lot of other custom mocks like this one from Thrawn's Revenge. Wonderful builder. Give him a follow on Instagram. I don't know what other channels he has, but that guy's really cool. Met him at BrickCon last year. A lot of ways it works really well. The spindly legs are there. The dome is there. The eyes are coming out of the dome. Like, it is more Dwarf Spider Droid than any of these. I want ours to stand apart from that in one way, which is I want to make sure that we still have a smooth dome. This is doing wonderful things with brick-built angles and trying to get that representation of an orb, but I think that we might be able to do something a little bit better at the expense of where that antenna comes out. The 2018 one eschewed the antenna completely. The 2005 one put the antenna in the back in order to keep that representation, and I think that's where we're going to go with ours. Lastly, I want to make sure that we're hitting the spindly legs like we saw in the 2008 version, with making sure that we still have some feet to it like we saw in the versions after that. So our droid is going to be made out of just 48 parts. These are all relatively common parts, and I'll post a full parts list in the description. What we're going to do first is assemble the core of our droid. We're going to use this octagonal connector piece, put this 2x2 round on top, this 4x4 round on top of that, and then 3 of these 45-degree sections in the middle like so. The studs on the edges of these pieces allow our dome to actually sit on top of here. We're going to use these 3 1x1 round width bars. This middle one is just going to fill out the gap in the middle of those pieces. Then we're going to have our trans red eyes on these 1x1 rounds with holes in the middle to make sure that we get our eyes sticking out of our dome. Next, the dome piece goes on top. It's best if you can line up the gaps all the way down. Put that aside for a second. We'll grab our 3x3 dish. Another one of these 1x1 rounds with holes gets inserted, and the little bar inside. This will push into this pinhole at the bottom, and that is our central orb. On the front for the cannon, we'll grab a 1x1 modified plate with clip and a 1x1 modified rounded with bar connection. One of these bar holders, 3L bar, Technic pin on the end just for decoration. And that will be our cannon at the front of the droid. I'm going to do another connection for our antenna piece at the back. I'll set that aside. Lastly, we're going to go a 1x1 with stud on here. Exoforce claw. Modified clips. Feet. And one of these. And this is our basic leg construction. We'll do that 4 more times. And now we have our legs. That attached to our final spider droid. Okay, this is what we came up with. It still has those spindly legs like we want to see out of a Dwarf Spider Droid. There's a little bit more armor on the lower shin part, and it still has those tiny little feet. In the middle, that part that I wanted to hit is that nice orb. Look at that orb and all of the things coming out of that orb. We have the eyes mounted to the front of it. We have the cannon coming out from the middle, and it still kind of hits that Dwarf Spider Droid aesthetic that I think that we're looking for. The antenna is mounted in the back, much like it is in the 2005 version, and when you look at it from most angles, it isn't too apparent. This is what I mean when we're talking about representational design. Obviously, this isn't screen accurate, but I think it represents the on-screen design a lot more than Legos does. So there you have it, all 7 of Lego's Dwarf Spider Droids, as well as our own creation. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Check me out on Instagram, TikTok, all the other places. Links are in the description. And let me know what you want to see next. More Separatist droids, Clone Army stuff, something other than Star Wars, I like that too. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about my big Johnny Thunder Adventurers collab in the next one. Looking forward to see you guys there. The first Lego Dwarf... Oh my god, say that 17 times fast. Dwarf Spider Droid. Lego Dwarf Spider Droid. Lego Dwarf Spider Droid. Lego Dwarf Spider Droid. Holy shit. Okay. Woo! Okay, we're back in it.